Hey, we're gonna get started here in a second. We're just waiting for Miles to hop on. Can everybody hear me? Can they hear me on there? It says I'm still muted.
No, you're not. That's me. Don't touch that.
Don't touch anything. Don't touch anything.
It's new to this. She's handling your muting.
There's a good. I'm just gonna stand here and talk. Here we go. Nate Ziegler's on. John, can you give me a thumbs up that you can hear me? Awesome. This is Miles. Will you pin Miles?
I'm here.
Can you get me water? I'm starting to go away.
Go ahead and unmute so that.
Go, friends. Everybody. All right. We are going to get started. Miles, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
I can't hear you.
No.
Can you hear me? Sorry, I was muted. No? Nothing? You still can't hear me? Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Get that figured out. I'm just going to introduce Miles. Miles is a buddy of mine from my old office, and Nate is the guy that's standing behind him. Miles got into the industry 2 years ago. He came from a corporate job, and last year he did over 600,000 in GCI and 77
Can you
units.
follow me? I need you to stand here so you're not blocking.
Okay, oh, there it is. So he did over 77 units with his team and 600,000 in GCI. He married his grade school sweetheart, went to Cedarville University, and is an incredible guy growing his team. And I wanted you guys to have the opportunity to pick his brain. So I wrote out some questions. If we get to it, we'll go to a Q&A. But if not, we'll just go off the questions I asked. So the first question I got for you, Miles, is what drives you?
Can you hear me now? Just want to make sure. Yes? No?
Yes.
Yes. So the people on the Zoom can hear me, but the people in the room can't hear me?
I have
that
no
what we're-
idea.
Okay. Crompton Group, I can hear you, man.
Let's just do it ourselves anyway. I'm the one that matters.
There you go. All right, hang on a second. Let's try something different. Let's see. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
It sounds like they can hear you, Miles.
Miles, put your headphones in. We can't hear you.
What about now?
You don't do anything different.
All right. I'm here. All right, so let's start over. What did you get? What did you say? Do you need to introduce me again?
You did 600,000 in your second year. What's the motivation behind that?
I mean, I've got two little girls at home. I've got a wife now of 6 years. I feel like I've got an awesome family that I'm just I very motivated to provide for. And I mean, you guys know this, but the service we provide to our clients is when it's really good. I feel like it is something that's a rewarding feeling, and so I feel like chasing that is something that I did a lot early on and still continue to do. And now I've got a team that I can kind of try to lead and allow them to kind of have that same service-minded approach. So that's kind of what drives me, is just to continue to grow and provide for my family.
We've had a couple conversations in the past where it's like you're almost addicted to that closing table feeling with like
Yeah.
a job well done.
Yeah, for sure.
The
Wait, did you
biggest
have a
lesson that
question?
you've learned
Sorry.
or the best advice you received in the first 2 years?
So, I mean, a big quote that someone said my first year was that people don't remember what you said, they remember how you made them feel. So that is something I feel like I have tried to make my motto a little bit, so that when I'm with someone, if they feel heard, if they feel served, like I am actually listening to what their needs are, to me, I think I'm going to make an impact in their life if I can make them feel in a way that has them come away from the conversation that, hey, I'm important. That this guy made me feel important, and I feel like he's going to be the one to help me get the job done here and meet my needs. So that was
Again,
something that I
just
learned.
so everybody has it one more time.
Yeah, that people don't remember what you said; they remember how you made them feel. Because I mean, we're emotional based, people, humans. I mean, I just feel like we like thrive off of how we're feeling in the moment. That's what kind of guides our decisions. And so if I can have a seller or a buyer feel important, like I listen to them, I think that's something that's kind of unmatched. So
Now, in the opposite, what's the worst advice you received or the biggest limiting belief somebody tried to put on you in those first 2 years?
I don't know that that's something someone else probably put on me as much as I put it on myself, to believe that I didn't know enough people, that I didn't have a network, a sphere, people that trusted me. I mean, I like looking back, I think I had almost all the right tools kind of coming into this to be impactful in the market and to provide a really good service. But I just, for some reason, I did not believe that, because I was looking at other people and the spheres that they had and the businesses they had created, and just thought it wasn't something that I could do. But that was just a limiting belief that I had of myself.
Take 2 seconds on that. The coolest part about Miles' business is he went into a market that was one neighborhood that was dominated by one individual agent. She probably had close to 35% market share, and he's since taken that in 2 years. And it's all sphere based. It's all database and sphere based business. Now, my limiting belief still has always been, it's how do you build? You can't build a big business on your sphere that quickly. So what did you do differently? Limiting belief for me.
I mean, it was like not everybody that I know knew that I was a realtor, right? Not everybody knew that I was getting my license. So when people know and they know you, like you probably have a network that is not being tapped into. Like, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like most realtors are somewhat likable people, like with a little bit of charisma, and they can leave an impact on someone when they have a one-on-one conversation. So my thing was, I just need to make sure that people know that I am a realtor and that I have experience. So the experience part was, I think, a huge hurdle that I had to get over, because at the beginning I didn't think that I was worth the commission that I was going to be charging. So but then I think something I ended up pulling off of a lot was, well, I had been investing in real estate for 4 years before I got my license. So like looking back, that helped a lot. I was already seen a little bit as a real estate guy. So that helps. That helped looking back. People are already coming to me asking for some questions related to investing and things like that, like how I had bought our rental properties. And so I think it just, my approach changed a little bit to try to use some of that experience on the front end. And now I can speak to the experience that I've got actually helping people buy and sell homes. But yeah, I mean, to go back, yeah, like a sphere business, I feel like it's just based on people you know, and so you got to meet more people. Like if you don't have a sphere currently, then go find a way to, even if it's cold, to meet people. I mean, something that we're really leaning into this year is door knocking in neighborhoods where we sold houses, and the areas that we know really well. We're going to go try to prove our knowledge and provide value to the people in those neighborhoods, because this year we want to continue to take market share, as the market is kind of shifting and potentially, like shrinking. It's becoming more of a skill-based market, as maybe you've heard. Well, I want us to hone our skills and at the same time be meeting more and more people. Because something that we lean into on the Sphere side is events. So we throw quarterly events, and those are free events for our clients and the people that know, like, and trust us already. And we ask them to invite a friend or share our posts so that their friends can know that this free event's happening, because this is just a value add to their life. And I believe that when you add value to someone's life, that is going to circle back and you're going to get that in return in some form or fashion. And we've experienced that.
That's awesome. And so when you went hyper local, right, you talk about those quarterly events, but were you doing those quarterly events right when you started? And what did you do ultimately that set you apart to take over that market in year 1 and year 2, right? I know that we've seen those events start to roll out more this past year.
Right.
That's not to say that he did 600,000 gross GCI last year, but his first year, you still made over $250,000, $300,000 in your first year in real estate. So
yeah.
I don't know you running events back then. So what were you doing to stay hyper local then?
Yeah, events were something that we kind of leaned into when we realized that our business was going to be very Sphere heavy, because it was a way to kind of give back to our people and just love on our people. But at the beginning, I mean, man, I don't think I can chalk it up to much else than just hustle. I mean, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book says anyone can do it, not everyone will, right? That to me is so much more based on drive and moving in the right direction and actually making moves, actually doing the things to meet new people and to try to find opportunity. Well, I mean, early on, anytime I saw any sort of hint of a potential real estate transaction, whether it was someone selling a lot of stuff on Facebook Marketplace or, someone posting about their friend selling something associated with like their house, like some furniture or something like that, I was going to send a cold message and say, hey, I'm a local realtor. I helped sell this house, or I am working on one of your neighbors, or I know one of your trying to make a connection in some way. And because I'm in a smaller market, I feel like almost anybody that I can meet, I can find some sort of mutual connection with. Well, it was a whole lot of that. It was a whole lot of cold Facebook messaging. Sometimes it was knocking on doors early on. When I had a buyer, I was going to, and if they wanted a specific area, I was going to find what their criteria would lead to and go knock on those houses or try to call those houses and just see if that would drum up a new relationship. Because that relationship I would have value to add to this seller or this owner to say, hey, I've got a buyer that is willing to pay you this for your house because this is what your neighbor's house sold for. Does that sound appealing to you at all? And even if that conversation doesn't lead to an immediate deal, now I'm in their ear, and you better believe I'm going to be following up with them, because it may not be now, but it may be, in 6 years.
Send you this question, but you answered one of them, which was, what did your lead generation look like in the beginning? I remember talking to Miles, and Miles comes in, no one knows him, and then all of a sudden he's got 5 million under contract, and he's like, I'm just messaging people on Facebook. And you said something really cool there, that if they were selling stuff, you were messaging them. So you weren't waiting for it to be for sale by owner. So talk a little bit about that lead generation, and then also what your follow-up looked like. Because you believe I'm going to follow up. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, so it had to be different, I think, because I don't think I could hammer like the same type of contact. So if I reached out to them saying, hey, it looks like you're selling a lot of your stuff. Is this in preparation for a move? And then maybe it was a quick no. Then I was going to follow up next time and say, hey, I know you said you weren't looking to move. Did you see this house a few doors down that just sold? It would probably speak to the value of your house a little bit, So I mean, and usually I try to follow up quarterly with people just to make sure that I'm touching people enough. And now that is somewhat around our event space, because there's a ton of touches that we manufacture as a part of our event, so that people see us on social media, people get a Facebook message from us, people get an email, they get a text, all these different touches that you can do before and after an event feels like a good excuse to reach out to someone because I've got something to say.
So what are you doing great right now, and what are you wanting to improve?
Well, like I said, as the market is shifting, we are definitely leaning into door knocking to make sure that we're reaching new people for our event broadcasting, because we're definitely still going to make events a staple of our brand, so that people know that, hey, at least once a quarter, I can expect a free thing that is somewhat tailored to a family oriented type of thing, and they're going to get invited to it. And if they're a homeowner and they're hearing from me at least 4 times a year, I feel like I'm at least going to be in the running for when they go to sell, or if they know someone. I mean, I feel like the more lines of communication you have open that are real estate related, the easier it's going to be for that person to step back into that same line when the time does come, or if they've just got questions about the market or their house's value or something like that. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
A lot of different ways.
What's that?
The MREA, you're touching 36 times in different ways.
Yep.
The book works.
It works.
Imagine this room is full of agents who started their first day. What's the advice you tell them? Today's the first day in real estate. What are you telling them?
I mean, I've probably said a lot of what I would say already. Make people feel important. Meet as many people as you can. I don't know. I mean, some people I feel like just be kind, and like you gotta be growing. So like learning about your specific market. People will listen to you when they feel like what you're saying is true. And if you couple just truth and kind of knowledge with making people feel good, I mean, I feel like it's impossible not to be successful when you have those two things.
So we've got, how much time do we have of yours? 3
Fine.
minutes?
Yeah, that sounds right.
7 minutes? I know he's got another one right after this. So I'm going to get your contact info. Is that all right? And share it with everybody?
Sure.
I'll write it here for you. So if you want to reach out to Miles, does anybody have a question that they want to ask him? I got What's a typical event for you look like?
Yeah, so our next event is actually on President's Day. We are renting out a local trampoline park around here. There's a chain called Sky Zone, and we are gathering our preferred vendors first to say, hey, we're going to be loving on our clients. Do you want some FaceTime with them too? Because you can do that if you help partner with us on this event. So we are renting out this facility, and it's got a maximum jumping capacity of like 350 people, something like that. So we had an event in the fall where we had 303 attendees. So I think this one, I'm expecting that. It being President's Day, we kind of did that on purpose because it's a holiday where it's not a Saturday where people might have plans. It's a holiday where kids are going to be out of school, and so I think that might help our numbers too. But yeah, so at that event, we're offering a free meal for each attendee, so they're going to get to go to the concession stand and get a slice of pizza, a slushie, and a bag of chips. So I mean, just trying to provide a good experience to them that maybe they'll remember and tell their friends that they got to be at the next one.
Okay. Were you able to hear that?
No.
You repeat it? Oh. What was what information did you give people that offered the most value and well received when you initially met them?
Usually it had to do with the local market, but it also was kind of dependent on the situation. I mean, I feel like something that gives you a competitive edge in a competitive market is research and knowing things. So like if there was any sort of clue as to where or why someone is making a move. I mean, speaking to that, like in a kind of humble way, feels like it's not going to be as invasive as if you're just spouting information, right? I feel like delivery is so important. And so usually I was trying to like, hey, this might not be the case, but I'm a local realtor, so I wanted to see if I could help, or something like that. Like, I feel like the way you phrase things is really important, not to be overbearing and to just kind of slide slowly into someone's DMs.
Awesome. Well, Miles, we'll respect your time. I appreciate it. What areas do you serve if they have somebody moving there that they can send to you?
Yeah, I mean, Dayton, Ohio mostly. We'll also take on clients in Cincinnati, and then we've got all the agents in the world that we know in Columbus and some other areas in Ohio. So yeah, kind of South Ohio, Southern Ohio.
Awesome, brother. Well, I appreciate your time and thank you for doing this. I'll put your contact info up here and talk to you soon. Oh, this year, Miles plans to do over 100 units with him and his team. And it's him and one other agent in his 3rd year in real estate. So thank you, brother.
Yep.
Yeah. Haas.
I'm just like passporting to the piece. That's it. Yep. Yep. So I can stand on this side of it and not get in the way.
And then if you want me to, I can go to this for you.
Yep.
Do you want me to do that? 903, 1025.
Yeah, and it should be.
Oh man, you're killing me. No, wait, 24. You're. I was confused with the clock time.
No. So that's just the minutes on there.
You just tell me, look at me, and
Okay.
then just tell me when you want.
And it doesn't have to be exact there, but you'll see a new slide there. So you don't have to do that. Though. I can do
Sure.
it.
Okay.
I can do it. I can do it. Take a seat. Take a breath. Is there something at 11:30? Like, is there truly a hard stop? Okay. If they want to keep like. Hello, everybody. I'm Anton Roger. For those of you who don't know me, I've been in real estate for 21 years. Keller Williams for, what, Joseph, 18 and a half, 19? I lose track. Almost 19. Yeah. Okay. So I've been in real estate for 21 years. Keller Williams for almost 19 years. I've owned 65 properties in Charleston as an investor, so I also know that business. So what I'm going to do today is and the first Friday of every month, I always go through the market stats. So that's the class, the first Friday at noon. I'll go over the market stats. I'm doing something a little different today. And I know some people in this room, Jan, and this is the Barry Habib presentation. And I'm not playing the presentation. I'm just going through some of the slides. And you don't have to write any of this down, because afterwards, Kristen is going to volunteer for me to send this out to everybody. And it's a YouTube link. And essentially, you can go through and stop and pause and look at everything. and he does an excellent job of explaining everything. And this was done, I think, December 23rd. So Barry Habib is a movement mortgage. I don't know what his title is, but he's the guru. Like, he knows financing, and I listen to him because he's very impressive with what his knowledge is, and he shares stuff that I've never seen presented in this fashion. So I'm just going to go through some of the slides today. But again, you don't have to write any of this down. All these slides and more. It's an hour packed with information, so you'll have to pause it and digest what he's saying. But so I'm just going through some of the slides. So the first one, and I know you might not be able to see everything, this is inflation drives mortgage rates. And this goes back in time. And again, you don't need to share all this information with the clients. Pick pieces of this to convey to them. This goes back, and it just says inflation drives mortgage rates. So it goes back to 2018. And what it shows on here is the bottom line is inflation, and the blue, the top one at the beginning, that's mortgage rates. So you can see when inflation was low, the mortgage rates obviously were low. But then as they started raising the Fed rates, look at the time lag. So this is the quantitative easing period here. Look at the time lag and look what happened to the mortgage rates, right? So inflation in the end is going to drive the mortgage rates. So it's just something to watch as inflation affects our business, right? We need it to be under control. So all those raising of rates, which they'll probably raise a couple more, but at some point it will come to an end. And when they start to backtrack and ease, that should help the mortgage rates, which you can see. And he did this back in December, and you can already see some of the things that he talks about this in this video already coming true. And he did one of these back in the summer. And if you listen to the summer, exactly what he said happened. And so he seems to be very knowledgeable about, the way this industry works. The next slide I'm going to go to is right in here. So this is, make sure it pauses. So this is inventories as a whole. This is not housing inventories. This is what's stocked at Walmart and what's on Amazon. So what he goes through here is, you can see right in this window here, when the pandemic happened, everybody had extra money, right? The government's printing this money, sending it out to everybody. What are they doing with the money? Yeah, some people are saving some of it, but what are they really doing? They're spending it. They're going to Walmart. They're buying furniture. They're doing this. So that's what drove the inventory down, right? And then if you have no inventory, you have a lack of supply, but you have high demand, what happens to prices? They go up, right? So this shows what happened, why the inflation went up. But now look at what's happening now. Where are inventories now relative to, sorry, this is in the way. Let me see if I can get it out of the way. So here's 2018, right? So we have higher inventory than we did in 2018. So what should that do to inflation, right? We have more supply, and as demand starts to decrease, prices should, I'm not saying they're going to fall back down, but they should settle down, and inflation should be more under control. And the reason we're talking a lot about inflation is that first slide, right? It affects mortgage rates. This next slide is 25. So this is an inflation chart, and this goes monthly. So what it shows, this goes back to 2021, and it shows each month what the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, is doing. So it went up 0.8% in June, and it shows each month. So what do? They do a rolling 12-month average. When you hear, when you read articles or hear the news and where they're talking about inflation, they're talking about a rolling 12-month average, right? And so what they're doing is they're adding those last 12 months. Well, if you look at, and again, he did this in December, keep in mind. So this is November. So they show what the last 12 months were. And what's happening is the last few months, and I don't have in front of me what the December numbers were, but I think it was about 0.2%. So what's happening is the new months are replacing a very low number from a higher number in the past. So December of 2021 was 0.6%. Well, if that's replaced with a 0.2%, now the rolling 12 months just dropped 0.4%. So where are we headed? And especially if you look at April, May, and June, that was 0.6, 0.6, 0.7. So when we get to July of this year, we're going to erase those 3 months of really high inflation with probably really low months of inflation. So you're going to watch when that summer comes around, that inflation rate is going to drop pretty dramatically. And again, this is all due to the higher Fed rates slowing down the demand, increasing the supply. But this is how the market works, is that it's that 12-month rolling average. So this is what he's doing. He's just saying, hey, look at the summer, look at April, May, and June. Those are going to be replaced, and we are going to be under control with an inflationary pressure. Next one is 1748. And he has way more slides than this in there. So this is, now we're getting back to real estate. So 30-year mortgage rates versus the 10-year treasury spread. Did everybody yesterday and today, what happened to the 10-year treasuries? The yields really dropped, right? So we can forecast that, like, okay, now mortgage rates, and what have mortgage rates done the last few months? They've dropped, right? And I know 6.25, 6% seems high, but what is it relative to ago? It's lower. What does anybody see the article yesterday? What was the increase in mortgage applications? I heard, yep. So 25 to 28% was the increase in mortgage applications. Why is that? Calendar flipped, rates are down, right? There are still a lot of buyers out there. Look at all the showings on your, there are buyers out there ready to go. What are they waiting for? Rates to come down, maybe prices to come down. So what's happening is that the mix of that 25 to 28%, believe it or not, the refi business was up 43%, which was higher than the purchase business. Increase, not year over year, this is month over month. So it was increase of 43%. Why is that? Who's already refinancing? The people who bought at 7.25%, right? They're already refinancing their mortgages. So as we go forward, if rates hit 5.5%, how many more people are going to refinance? A lot more people. So again, what's happening is we've, in his opinion, we've kind of passed that peak window of mortgage rates. If the Fed does a couple more increases, they're probably already baked into the mortgage rates. And what his point is on here, this goes back to 1991. So this isn't some short period of time. And what it shows is between the 10-year treasury and the mortgage rates, there's usually 175 to 200 basis point spread. The easiest way to think that is 1.75% to 2%. So that's the normal spread historically. And you look at how much they mirror each other, right? It's a lot of data, right? It's 30 plus years of data. So it shows it's always that spread. And again, when the 10-year treasury dropped with COVID, what did the mortgage rates do? They dropped. When they started raising all the rates, what did the mortgages do? Went way up. But his point in this video was the spread became 300 basis points. So it was 3% on top of the 10-year treasury. And he explains in this video the reason behind that was because they knew, the mortgage industry knew these 7.25%, 7% mortgages were not going to last for 30 years, meaning somebody's going to refinance that mortgage. And his point is that extra point of interest that was baked into there is because the service providers wouldn't take that mortgage because they're like, well, we're going to have this mortgage for 2 months. We're not going to make any money on this. So we better get a % up front, willing to take on this service as a service provider of that mortgage. So it was artificially high above the treasury yield because everybody knew those mortgages aren't going to be serviced for 30 years because the rates are so high and they're going to get refinanced. And I'd never heard that before until he explains it in this video, but it makes perfect sense why that spread was so big. So back in here, I mean, that was 7.25%. That's why it was so much higher than the 10-year treasury. Yes. There's no rule on refinance period unless you have, so sorry, the question was, is there a period of time that buyers have to wait to refinance their mortgage? Unless they have a prepayment penalty, which I don't think I've ever seen in 20 years. Unless they have a prepayment penalty, they can refinance at any time. And the general rule of thumb has always been about a point difference, right? So if you're at 7%, at 6%, you might look into refinancing. No offense to the loan officers, but that doesn't matter, right? I mean, the reality is it's your money, it's your decision. And yeah, I mean, it's the reality, it's your decision to be able to make as a homeowner. Yep. I don't know the exact. Yeah. So, this is a very important slide. To me, this is one of the more important ones. Is like that's 30 years of data. Unless there's a circumstance that would happen here recently, you're going to be about 1.75 to 2% above the 10-year Treasury as mortgage rates, and we got way above it. So as the Fed, as they peak out, and if they start to come back down, watch those rates, and that 1.75 to 2% is going to match because it has historically. I mean, this is a lot of data here. Next one is 2406. So this one talks about mortgage rates and recessions, right? So this goes back to 1972. So every highlighted area is a recession. And what it shows is what's the commonality coming out of every single recession? Mortgage rates go down, right? Every recession coming out of it, mortgage rates go down. So again, if we hit a recession this year, which is everybody's predicting at some point this is going to happen, what can we expect mortgage rates to do? Drop, right? It's an historical reference point. And yes, there's different numbers at 7%, 8%, but on every one of them coming out of the recession, the mortgage rates went down. And again, this is his point of this is what this new year looks like, is that if we do get in a recessionary period, expect rates to come down because the Fed is going to have to start to ease backwards and start dropping the Fed rate, which will then drop the 10-year Treasury, which will drop the mortgage rates. And you can see it happening. The forecast, the reason rates dropped is now the forecast is like, okay, inflation looks like it's starting to get under control. We're probably near our end of increases. So they're predicting this is where it's going. So the rates are already starting to go there. Yes. Yeah, I don't remember. Right. But like coming right out of it, other than this one here, and I think he does mention this one here in the video, but even this one here, it went lower after the recession. And I'm talking immediately following the recession. So every period of time, and he does mention this one, I can't remember what he said about this one, but, and I mean, obviously you had back-to-back recessions and 18 to 13% interest rates. So, I mean, that was a highly abnormal period. But again, I'm just like looking at the slide and remembering what he said. If you listen to him, he has way more information than I'm providing to you. So I'm just doing the Cliff Notes version. So this shows basically the housing market. So this is the Case-Shiller Housing Price Index. So again, it's the same recession periods. And I know it's probably hard to see the light in the dark on here, but basically what it's saying is that other than our fabulous 2008 recession, other than that recession, coming out of every recession, house prices were stable and higher, right? So other than the recession that was actually caused by real estate, right? I mean, out of all these recessions, there was one that was caused by real estate, and it was the 2008 recession. That's the one that it did not go higher afterwards. So it's just, again, a lot of historical data to show you, where this market is headed. 7. So now, and again, this is, I think he starts going into household formations here. Come on. So what this shows, this goes back to 2004 through 2022, and the blue is the household formations, and the orange or yellow is completions of homes. So one stat I didn't ever hear was the average age of a household formation in the US is, you probably know, you can't say the answer because you probably know. Anybody know the average age of household formation? You probably know the answer too. 33. That's the average age of household formation in the US. So it was a very interesting reference point, because what he pointed out here is, look at what happened in the recession, right? We were building a lot of houses, but the household formations were way lower than the houses being built. So this period of time, 2006, 7, 8, 9, we were building a lot more houses than needed by the household formations. And, and then again, now let's fast forward to 2016. What's happening? The opposite. We're forming more households than we're building properties, right? So we were way ahead, and that's why we jumped up in inventory. Now, over the past 6, 7 years, we've fallen way behind on housing needs based off of household formations. And he puts a good reference point, and he's like, well, why did we go from here to here in 2005 and 6? And you can't answer this if you've already listened to this. Anybody know why 2006 would have been a huge drop in household formations? And I did not know the answer, so I'm not like. So he goes through this next slide. 2849. I think it's this one. So this next slide, this goes way back to 1928. And it shows basically, the generations of births. And if you were born, if your household formation was 2006, what year were you born? 1973. And this is not a political statement. What law was passed in 1973? Roe versus Wade, right? That was that case. So look at the massive drop in household formations at Roe versus Wade. So this effect right here was felt 33 years later in real estate, right? And that was, the effect was the pre-recession period, where all of a sudden everybody's building all these houses. At the same time, the household formations fell off the cliff. So now we're building all these properties and there's nobody to fill them. I mean, for those of us that were in real estate in 2006 and 2008, how many vacant houses did you have listed? A lot, right? A lot of them were vacant. There was more houses than you had people who could occupy them. What do you see now? How many vacant houses? Not that many, really, right? Not the level we had in 2008. So it's showing we're still trying to catch up with that effect of, because now if it's 2023, what year were those born that were, it's 1990. So people born in 1990 are 33 this year. So the millennial growth is what we're feeling on the demand side, right? So it's amazing when you look at trends from 33 years ago, that's what's happening to us today, right? So you have to follow, and here's, look, this is 1990 right here. What's that? That's a peak, right? Look at that growth into 1990. And then it kind of slows down, right? So we're in that peak period of household formations right now. And it will slow down over time. But yeah, I thought this was a very interesting chart just to kind of show you what happens to real estate. And then there's this one. So this is more for fun. So this one here, what do we fight every day as real estate agents? The media, right? Because you're having to answer questions from your clients. Oh, I read this article, house prices are going down, there's all this inventory, rates are way up, right? So the more articles you read to understand what's going on, the more things like you can address their concerns and questions, whether it's a seller or a buyer, right? So this one, he goes through, and I think he does call out who it is on here, but he goes through and he explains to them, okay, October 2015, you said the housing, a bubble larger than 2006. In 2015, the media said that. And then what happened? And on the right, he goes through and he says, well, this is what happened to real estate from the largest bubble since 2006. What did house price do? They went up. 2016, we're in a new housing bubble. This is the same person saying this. What happened to house prices? They went up. 2017, home ownership doesn't build wealth. What happened? House prices went up. It's better to rent than buy in today's housing market. Aren't you hearing these things today, right? Same things you're hearing? The housing market is about to shift in a bad way for buyers. July 2019, right? To that, and then another one. Next year will be hard on the housing market, especially in the big cities. December 2019. Which one of those were right? I would say probably none of them, right? So if your buyers have a perspective of a long-term outlook, and he goes through here further on in the slides, and he has comparisons of home ownership versus renting, right? Because everybody's either a tenant or a homeowner. You're one or the other, right? And he goes through and the advantages of being a homeowner, and it's an important conversation because you do have a lot of people. And what are rents doing right now? It's expensive, right? For those of you who own a house, and if you look at your payment right now, look and what could you rent for that payment? And I see a lot of people shaking your head. Would you live in that property? Probably not, right? So it just shows that your home ownership decision in the past is giving you the ability to live in a place you couldn't afford if you didn't own it, right? I'm the first one to say I couldn't afford my house if I didn't own it today, right? So I think a lot of people say that. And again, as what we're going to watch happen is, as the rates start to edge back down, you're going to get those sellers who are locked in at a really low rate and low payment start to consider again making a move. Right? When it's 7.25% and you're locked in at 2.75, who's moving? Right? It's a hard conversation from a financial aspect. But as rates start to come back down, if they start getting in the 5s, and maybe you can get like an adjustable in the 4s, now it's like, okay, well, that difference in payment, I'm willing to participate in that for this change in my life. So it's going to benefit us as, I mean, what we've lost is transaction count, right? It's become an affordability issue. And we ran into a situation where we're trying to motivate sellers and buyers at the same time. I mean, we've been in it 21 years. I've never been in a situation where you have unmotivated sellers and buyers all at the same time, right? Usually it's one or the other. Right now, you have unmotivated sellers because they don't want to leave their payment, right? You have unmotivated buyers because they either can't make the payment or are not willing to make that payment. So as the affordability starts to correct itself, and how, you know, it's not just interest rates, what's happening to affordability too? House prices are coming down, right? They're not dropping, but look at all the price changes, right? Look at the price changes. Look at houses that sold in the spring, and you can't tell me every one of them would sell for the same thing or higher today, right? So as the price of the house comes down and the interest rates come down, what's the affordability doing now? Going way up, right? What were we doing for 2 years coming out of COVID? What was affordability doing? Going way down, right? And the only reason why it was masked because they dropped the rates so much that it basically spurred on that price growth because it was making it more affordable to pay more for a house. And as soon as the prices were up here and interest rates went way up, then your affordability just fell off the cliff. So we're trying to get back to an affordability a market that's affordable, that makes decisions. And again, from a rent perspective, it's like, okay, you can pay $4,000 a month for this, or you can buy this house for $3,200. So it's up to you to show them like, well, here's the long-term math, and this is the reason why it's still a benefit to you to purchase. And you know, it's going to be that conversation this year because you're still going to have articles. Watch these articles. These articles here, wait till we hit like June and July because it's going to get ugly, right? Because what's going to happen? House prices are going to become negative in the media, meaning the actual data year over year, I firmly believe will turn negative, right? We're still positive, but wait until those peak numbers come out from next year to compare to last year, and we're not going to hit those numbers. You know, the median price for 2 months was $420 and $425 in Charleston in April and May, or maybe it was May and June. We're not going to hit that this year. So when the June and July articles come out from the media, it's going to look, house prices went down 8%, right? So now it's a fight for us to convince our, like, look, we saw this coming, right? It's because there was an abnormally high period of time that house prices were probably selling for more than they should have. But then once we reach the fourth quarter of next year, it's going to completely turn around again. And we should be, in my opinion, zero or positive, right? So it's a moment in time that we're going to go negative because there's too much demand. What's inventory doing this year? It's drifting down, right? It's fairly steady, but it's drifting. What should inventory be doing typically in a season? It should be going up already. When you go back to 2019 and before, you flip that calendar, what does inventory do? It starts to go up. We are drifting down right now. So what that's showing to me is the demand is overriding the willingness of sellers to hit the market. Now, you know, we typically should rise in the, what, does anybody know the question, this one? Or the answer to this one? What's the highest listing month of the year in Charleston? The most number of listings hitting the market? I heard of March. Who said March? It's March. What month is it? What day is it? How close is March from now? Right? You better have these conversations now. It's the highest. Again, I'm taking away the 2-year window of COVID, right? Forget that for a moment. That is so not seasonal for Charleston. If you look at the whole history, the highest listing month is March. So we are ramping up very quickly right now into that highest listing period. So you better have your actions in place to be ready for all those listings hitting the market. And this is what happens. Everybody's too late in the season. Like, and I feel like if you have sellers and they're like, oh, we want to wait till spring. I'm like, well, now you're waiting for everybody else to hit the market. Like, why not go now before everybody else hits the market? Because if our supply is dropping, what is happening? The buyers are overwhelming the sellers, right? I mean, it is a drift down. Like, it's not normal to drift down, right? This time of year, we should be going up. So that's telling me, if this happens for another few weeks, that's telling me there's so much demand out there, we can't get enough listings. And we're in that same predicament of buyers not having enough choices. And as rates come down and affordability starts to come into play, you know, you could have multiple offer situations again if you're pricing a house right? If you look at that drop in sales price to original list price, it's been a massive decline because people were overpricing their houses based off the spring market. It's like if you price it accurately today, you will sell quickly, but you have to price it the right price and not bake in some numbers. But there are a lot of, I mean, I can tell from my listings, there are a lot of buyers out there, way more. If I were to go back to 2019, and if I had this many showings on my listings, I would have been like, whoa, what is happening here? There are so many buyers over the holidays, right? And I'm talking about like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, beginning of the year. The number of showings out there, I'm like, wow, something has changed. But now we're all numb after the past couple of years, right? But if you go back in time in your head and say, if this was January of 2020, and I saw this much traffic, I'd be like, whoa, here we go. We're going to have a busy market because there are a lot of buyers out there. And what have buyers become? Super picky, right? right? Because it's an affordability thing. Hey, if I'm paying this much, I want everything. And they're looking for that unicorn, right? And we know the unicorn doesn't exist, but they still look for it. And at some point, when they start losing properties, it's that fear of loss with buyers. If they love a house and they lose out, then and this is what happened during COVID, right? They lost one, they were so quick to react to the next one. So they might have to lose one or two before they realize, like, well, with rates down and inventory still low, and I know a lot of people over here know this answer. How many homes did we have listed in Charleston pre-COVID? Ballpark number. 6,000, right? How many do we have today? 26 something. What's that, less than half? Right? That is still a very low inventory market. So don't be fooled by yeah, it's not 928 we had last spring, but it's very low historically for what Charleston needs as a whole. You know, and you got to keep, we had 12,000 houses for sale in the recession in Charleston. We had 12,000. We have 2,600 today, right? And think about that, that was 15 years ago. We have 50% more people living here. So we have 50% more people living here with a fraction of the inventory. Anybody who says we're in a housing bubble, it's like, yeah, maybe we had this moment in time that we got ahead of ourselves, but the demand is high enough out there that we're not going to get in this situation where we did in the recession. And anybody who says that, I will speak to them all day long of the reason why that's not going to happen. Because I mean, think about it. We've probably peaked out on interest rates, right? We've probably peaked out on price. You know, so now we're moving forward with more affordability. Builders should be able to build more affordable houses because lumber prices are down. You know, yeah, we got to get rid of some of this inventory that's been built at the high prices. But as we go forward, you know, housing will become more affordable, which makes it easier to buy and sell a house. So, and there are a lot of people out there. I mean, I'm looking at the experienced agents in this room. There's a lot of people out there that want to move, right? But they own a house. And what do they have to do to move? They got to sell their house. So there's this jigsaw puzzle game happening right now between all these local buyers and sellers that want to move, but they're scared to sell their house because they don't know where they're going to go. But when that unleashes and you have that ability to move, that's going to create a higher transaction count. So, you know, I feel very, based off, and again, take an hour of your time, get some popcorn, whatever you need to do, watch his video. It's an hour long, and there's way more slides than I put up here. But like, he covers a lot of information and a lot from a perspective that I've never really seen. And it gives you a better perspective and comfort level of like, okay, we're good. We just have to like have conversations with our clients about some of this information. Again, don't share all this. Pick and choose what's important to convey to them, and you have to translate all this for them. But you know, it's great information, and I think he has an Instagram page that if you wanted to join in, he does updates. But I mean, out of everybody I've heard, he's a very, thank you. I volunteered you for that when you weren't here, I think.
Oh, I wasn't in here.
So anybody have any general questions? Think I'm on time?
Go ahead. Yeah, you're good. Yes.
So, and this is the question was comps right now, right? We're January, where are you looking for comps? And this is the hard thing, is that if there's a lot of comps, if you're in a neighborhood that has a lot of comps, then tighten that time frame up to 2 to 3 months. If you don't have many comps, it's okay to go back in time, but just understand there's a range there, and to be, you know, I'd rather go back in time than pick a dissimilar neighborhood, if that makes sense. Like, well, I don't have a comp here. There was one 6 months ago, but this one just closed last week, but it's in this neighborhood over here. I'd rather try to stick to the same neighborhood and understand, you know, prices, they were 420, 425 median price in Charleston in April, May. They're like 390 now. So the market has come off about 8%. So if you had a comp that sold in March and April, and there's a good chance that same house would sell for 8% less today. And I believe it. And again, I know some of you have heard this. The Charleston market goes up roughly 10%. Forget COVID, right? Blank that out. The typical year is 2014 to 2019. The Charleston market goes up in value 10% the first half of the year. It goes down 5% the second half of the year. So that net is 5%, right? So in that period of time, the net was 5%. Up 10 the first 6 months, down 5. Up 10, down 5. Up 10, down 5. So if we lost 8%, I truly believe 5% of that seasonality, right? Because we're at the bottom of the season. So if I'm looking at an 8% decline and I'm counting 5% to seasonality, I think the market has slipped 3%, right? So it's a very broad scope. This is all the data combined. You're going to have specific neighborhoods that have behaved differently, but in a broad perspective, the first 6 months is where the market increases all its value. And it's because the demand is overriding the supply. And then as you get kids back into school, what happens? The opposite happens. The supply is outriding the demand. So, and again, you look at 2014 to 2019, that's the most normal period of time I've been in real estate around here. And it's up 10, down 5, up 10, down 5. And, you know, again, so again, when I did the numbers, it's from the peak to the trough, because sometimes the low might be January, sometimes the low might be February, sometimes it might be December. The high point of the year to the low point of the next season, high point of the season to low point. It's like, because sometimes the low might be January, sometimes it might be February, but when you're talking to clients, you don't like just say the first half of the year. Yeah. But like, I took it from the high to the low to the high to the low. But it's a very important conversation piece. It's like, okay, well, people are saying house prices are down 8%, well, part of that's seasonality, right? And you can sense the demand changing and the supply going down. So it's stabilized. I feel like the price, with mortgage rates going up, the prices are being stabilized right now. Yeah, there's still some pricing pressures in some areas, but we're starting to equilibrize a little bit from where we were.
Go to the state KV report, take that segment of the market,
Oh.
And figure out in the median price. The median price has dropped, say, 10% from that point until now. You can adjust that price, and then you have justification to do so.
Yep.
What about for pricing that has two bills
Mm-hmm.
on? What are your recommendations?
I mean, and it's been challenging probably the fourth quarter, because what a lot of these builders do is they're just slash the prices to get rid of their inventory, right? There's some neighborhoods, I mean, there's one neighborhood, the original list price was $950 and the builder sold it for $738. Because these are the big builders that have corporate money that are just want to get stuff off their, it's not your money that you're giving away $212,000, it's some corporate money. So it is, we got to get past those comp windows of they were just selling at whatever price somebody was willing to pay. So you kind of have to get back that. So we're going to get back to the period. It's like, okay, if they got rid of all their inventory and there's nothing else to choose from, you can stand a little bit more firm on your price and maybe discount that comp a little bit from like, well, that was a builder just unloading inventory. And if there's not another one of those to choose from, we can look at more resale comps and count on those. But if you still are in a neighborhood where there's a lot of new construction that the builder is willing to discount, you have to take that in consideration as a resale at the same time. But we're going to get past, the builders are going to get rid of their inventory and build as they see the demand. You know, and fortunately, a lot of these people probably in executive positions at these big builders, they went through the recession in this business. And they maybe got a little ahead of themselves, right? They were just like, oh, look, these prices are going up. We're going to build all these specs and not selling any of them because prices are going up. And then they got caught. Like, oh, now we have all these finished houses and now we don't have any buyers. So what do? They drop the prices. But now they've kind of, I feel like, and I mean, a lot of you in this room do new construction. I feel like a lot of that inventory has been cleaned up. Right? Not all of it, but a decent amount has been cleaned up. And they're going to build as they see the demand coming, and we hopefully won't get into an oversupply situation of new construction again. But I mean, you know, everybody loves a new house, right? So I mean, if you're a resale with the same plan, you probably can't, you got to be below that new comp, because it's like a new car versus a used car, right? So, and I mean, what are used car prices doing right now? Coming down, right? What's inventory doing on new cars? They're starting to get stock again. So everything is getting back into a place of normalcy. It's just going to take some more time. So, all right. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I booked 3 ahas, and then we're gonna, to set up the rest of the day, we're gonna take about 20, 25 minutes. We've got lunch that was provided by a gracious sponsor who's gonna talk to us when we start the team meeting. But before we get into that, give me 3 ahas from Anton's presentation. Yes, ma'am. Wow, there we go. There we go. Well, that's good. I liked it. Right. Yeah. All right, I like that. All right, 2 more. Yes, ma'am. Right. Right. Love it. Sally.
I was shocked to hear that Anton did not know the answer to something.
Right. Oh, just spend more time with them. You'll find that out. Right? All right. So here's what we do. We're going to take about 20, 25 minutes, lunch break, mingle, hang out, and then we'll get started right a little bit after 12 with the team meeting. Does that work?